Welcome to Serve, Supply, Strengthen, a podcast developed to help churches reach their community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. We provide tools and resources through our various conversations to be able to help the local church meet that need. We are a ministry of the Upper Ohio Valley Baptist Association, and we welcome you as we dive into today's topic. God bless you, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to Serve, Supply, Strengthen. My name is Chuck Morrow, and if you're wondering why I'm probably laughing, it's because I've gotten the name of our special guest wrong probably 6 or 7 different times already. And Jonathan, if you're watching on YouTube, he gave me little notes. He spelled the name out here completely so that I don't get this wrong, because I tend to do that. So we were recording earlier a couple of minutes ago, and I just started talking, and Jonathan's like, and then he looked over at me, and Jonathan that's not his name. And I'm like, oh, man.
I was just going to go with it.
Well,
I was going to let it happen.
Well, we were talking, and I was like, well, earlier today, I was on the phone on a video call with another person with their name started with the same first letter as well. So I'm thinking, okay, I got the person's name in my head. And then I just started going, and we have Trey Cole with us today. Trey, thank you. See, I got it. Nothing can be more embarrassing than getting somebody's name wrong, right? You guys out there that know me personally know that I sometimes have some problems. Okay, well, we won't go any further than that. But with that, Trey, he is actually the special guest that's over in Cameron, West Virginia right now at Cameron Baptist Church, as you guys are celebrating revival out there.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity. You're going to see this or hear this on Friday. So the revival's going to be over.
Yep.
But I was going to say you should go out. But it's kind of hard to go when revival's over. However, you know, if God's stirring something in your heart, I want to encourage you, if you're in the Cameron area, go to Cameron Baptist Church. Go to Cameron Baptist Church. God's doing a great work there, and I'm really glad, again, to have Trey with us so that we can see. I looked at your name on the paper.
Yeah, just to make sure.
We have Trey with us so that he can be able to share a little bit about what God's doing in his life and how he's out sharing the gospel and how he's out here in Cameron, and also a little bit about what his take is on evangelism, right?
Yeah.
And so there's so many things. Now, Trey, over the last week, we started talking about evangelism last week. We gave some how-tos, some basic overviews of evangelism, the importance of evangelism, and started to dive into a lot of different techniques of evangelism as well. So for you, you're a student at Southwestern, right?
Yes, sir.
How's that going?
It's been great. I was not a good student growing up or while I was at Texas A&M, but now I actually go to class. I do my reading. It's a very different life stage for me. So it's been a good time. Well,
college is different. I remember when I first went to college, when I was, let's see here, back in 2001, I started out in college at West Liberty State College, if anyone's listening. The Hilltoppers, they're now university.
Okay.
And they are they in the Elite Eight? They're in the Elite Eight of the NCAA Division II basketball right now.
Nice.
And by the time you're listening, if they've won, they've went to the Final Four. So I'm praying for
Hopefully
the Hilltoppers.
The Final Four.
Yeah. I hope the Hilltoppers go to the Final Four. They've won by commanding amounts each game that they've played so far in the tournament, which is great. I know we're not here talking about sports, and I'll get back to the point here.
I'm a big basketball guy, though.
Well, March Madness just is getting ready to begin right now, and so it's March. So I'm into basketball. I like college basketball. I don't like professional basketball much,
how I am.
but I like college. But looking at that, when I was in college, I went to college in 2001, and I really, it's different. Especially when you move out and you're going directly on campus. And then you got the schedule you got to follow.
Yeah.
And
or at least should follow.
You should follow. And whether you skip class or not. And I I mean, so I had to learn discipline, and so college teaches you discipline when you got classes and homework and why. If you don't study, you don't get good grades, they kick you out.
Right.
I never was kicked out of college, so that's always good. The only time that I couldn't be in school was when I was in the Army while I was in college as well.
Wow.
And so I was pulled out because of the Army for multiple times. And so I wasn't able to complete semesters. However, in the music department that I was part of, they allowed me to continue on, even though my other professors didn't.
Okay.
Which was really good, though. It was still really good because that's work I didn't have to make up.
Right. Well, why didn't the other professors allow you to? That seems odd.
It was based off of their discretion. And so, okay, well, fine, whatever. But, college is different. And I'm grateful for the time that I spent at West Liberty. I eventually met my wife through West Liberty. After I graduated college, I married my wife. My wife was still going to West Liberty. And so it was a wonderful thing. You learn so many relationships and things and, experiences. But you're going to Southwestern.
Yes,
and
sir.
So now with Southwestern, you're in a program that you're able to come out and serve as an evangelist in different areas. How does that work out?
So Southwestern has a class called Revive the Nations, and the goal of it is that we have students who are studying to be pastors.
Okay.
We have a 8-week class that's basically an intensive of how to preach a sermon and different ways to preach different texts.
Okay.
So we have 8 weeks of that, and then over spring break, instead of taking a break, we go out and we get to preach at churches around the country.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I like so it's like a practicum.
Right.
So it's a hands-on. You learn, then you go and you do. I love that. That's
It's a great way to get to serve local churches around the country, and it's really good for us. For me, I am on staff at a church in Grand Prairie, so I preach on Thursday nights with our college ministry. But I had never had any kind of teaching on how to prepare a sermon, how to teach a sermon. So this has been really beneficial for me. Okay, this is what I've been doing wrong. This is what I need to improve.
Yeah.
This is what I have done fairly well and can continue to build on. So it's been really beneficial for me.
See, we really like to be able to, in our association, we like equipping. So we have a certificate of biblical teaching and preaching, which is like a practical, right? Where we do a tell-show we do a lot of intense. It's like 12 weeks long, but it's intense. It's multiple courses in hermeneutics, and then your expository preparation, and then it's also sermon prep. Then we also look at Baptist Faith and Message 2000. We look at Old Testament and New Testament review. In addition to that, we have a sermon preparation period where we select certain text, and that's the text that individual is going to preach on. Give a 20-minute concise message, but to ensure that they've covered all of the basics of preaching, right? And so that's where the hermeneutics comes in. That's where the homiletics comes in. That's where the expository and exegesis study comes in. All of those things, the opening, your main point, your application, your closing, all of those things are in there.
Right.
So then we have that.
And that's open to everybody?
That's open to those who want to be part of it.
That's really cool.
We believe that it's important to equip those. Local churches might not have everything, all the tools necessary. And so we come alongside the local church to help. So
that's awesome.
And then we utilize a couple of free courses. Some of our seminaries have free courses, distance courses, and Southeastern. So you're in Southwestern, but Southeastern has some free courses that we utilize through them.
Okay.
And then we have a couple of other things we do. And one of the classes is through there. Danny Aiken teaches.
Oh, Danny Aiken. I got to go to his. He came to Fort Worth with some of his sons, and they had a Christ-centered preaching conference. So I got to go to that in December, and that was really cool. It was 6 hours on the wisdom literature.
Wow, nice.
And they just broke down wisdom literature, and they taught through it and showed us different outlines, different ways that they've taught through it. Really interesting.
They actually, we're off subject, but that's okay. It's okay. Southeastern offers a free online Christ-centered exposition class.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really cool too.
Yes. So you just said that when he came out and he taught they offer a free class online. It's the same class that the seminary students take. It's broken down. You just don't have I have to get a grade in this class.
Right.
But they have a quiz at the end of each module.
And is it kind of like a self-paced, or is it?
Yeah, self-paced video. So you can go online, you register, you take the class, and there's all the different modules for the class, right? So you can't skip. So you have to go in the progress of which it allows. The notes and background information's there. Plus, they tell you now what you have to do is buy your reading materials, right? And then you go through the class and you follow the syllabus and the full outline, and you just take the whole class and you take it at your pace.
Wow, and you can enroll in that like at any point?
At any point.
That's really
Completely
cool.
free.
I'll have to look at that over the summer.
Yeah, it's really good. And then they also have the Southwestern's not sponsoring. No, sorry, Southeastern is not sponsoring this podcast, but
they could.
But Danny Aiken, if you're listening, we would be happy to take part in sponsoring Southeastern anytime. I appreciate the work you're doing. Anyways, maybe he'll get that message.
Maybe he will.
But they also offer certificate programs, which you can take a certificate program through, biblical studies. You can do counseling. You can do a whole bunch of other ministry-related certificate program areas. It's like 6 classes that you take, and at the end of that, you actually get a certificate from them,
right?
And you're considered an alumni.
You're considered an alumni. Wow.
Yeah.
I know Southwestern has something similar. I don't know if they're considered an alumni afterwards, but I know some of the women on staff at our church have talked about going and getting children's ministry certifications and special needs certifications and things like that.
I think that's important because with that, you have the ability, and that's why I applaud the SBC because our seminaries are stepping up. Like you said, Southwestern's got some courses like that. Midwestern, they've got the For the Church Institute.
Okay.
And so they've got courses like that now. Southeastern, they have classes like that. I don't know if Southern's got anything or New Orleans yet, but I know a lot of our seminaries are looking at ways to equip. And just this program, how they're doing things with you guys at Southwestern, I think is really great for them to send out the students that are in those the preaching classes so that they can get their feet wet and go out and do what they're being taught.
Right. Well, and it used to be a lot bigger because Revive the Nation was a pretty large event at Southwestern before COVID hit. But then whenever COVID hit, obviously everything went online. Podcasts started popping up everywhere. I have had 2 podcasts since COVID. But I think they're trying to rebuild it now. So we had 25 students go across the country, and a couple of them are actually going to different churches.
Oh, wow.
So they went and they would preach 1 or 2 sermons at one church. They would fly back to Fort Worth. The next day they get back on a plane and go somewhere else. So it's been, I think, over 30 churches that we've been at over the course of spring break and been able to preach at and share the gospel.
That's amazing. I love that. I mean, with what you're doing here, you're preaching at Revival at Cameron. How's things going out there?
It has been great. I love the church. The people there are incredible. Greg and Maggie have been my host home.
Oh, Greg and Maggie Knight? Yep.
They are incredible people. And we were up until 2:30 a.m. last night just sharing stories and talking about life. And then me and Greg stayed up till 1 a.m. the night before that and 2 a.m. the night before that. And I got to go be on the pig farm.
Wow, nice.
Yep, scoop some poop and got to bottle feed a calf. I named a calf after my mom for her birthday present.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you are in rural West Virginia.
I
It's
am.
probably not as like rural areas of Texas because Texas is more flat.
Right, Texas is very flat.
Right. And so we have more hills. And our separation by distance is because it takes an hour to get somewhere because it takes an hour to get over the mountain.
Right. Yeah, Texas, it takes an hour to get somewhere because it's all flat and it takes forever to get just anywhere. You can drive, I think, 13 hours across Texas and still be in Texas.
Oh, I know. I've not done that. I've heard stories. I know some people that's done that. But here's the thing with Texas. You can see the city. This is right there.
And it could be 30 miles away.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yep.
We're getting there. It's getting a little bigger.
I liked Cameron because Cameron's actually bigger than my hometown.
Nice.
My hometown was 400 people.
See, my hometown, well, not hometown, where I live, there's 400 people.
Okay, so yeah, we can relate to that.
Yeah.
I got to Cameron, I was like, wow, there's a lot of homes. There's a gas station. This is crazy. There's not a stoplight, I don't think, but
There's
got
a
stop
Family
signs.
Dollar.
There's a
Family Dollar in Cameron. And I have a Dollar General right by my house.
That's how you know you've made it.
Yes.
You are officially a city when that happens.
Yes. You know what they call that? They call that the Middleburn Mall.
The Middleburn Mall. But yeah, I've really enjoyed my time there, and the people that have been coming, I've really enjoyed getting to meet them and spend some time with them.
Oh, that's good. They're good folks down there in Cameron. Now, looking at that, so you're sharing the gospel, you're out there. Well, since we're talking about evangelism, what are some things that you look at with evangelism? So you're out here in Cameron, you're developing a message, and you're trying to do an evangelistic message to really praying that this is what God wants to set on the people's hearts. What are your thoughts when you're preparing about that? When you're preparing for revival?
Well, one thing that we stressed in our class leading up to this, in our Revive the Nations class, was that God was here before, the Southwestern preachers got here.
Yeah.
He's here with us now, and he's going to be here after we go home.
Right.
And his desire is that we would equip the saints for the work of ministry. That's what Paul writes in Ephesians 4. Mm-hmm. That is my goal here, is that I wouldn't just talk about the gospel, but that those who hear the message of the gospel would be so impacted and be radically changed like the disciples were. You would see this radical change in our lives, so that whenever we go out into Cameron, West Virginia, we don't only know about Jesus, we want others to know about Jesus. We want others to come to know Christ as their Lord and Savior. Mm-hmm. So that's really been my focus as I've been teaching and preaching throughout this week, is we need to understand the depth of the gospel, and we need to allow that to change the way that we live our life. We need to not only go about life and do the right thing and be a good example of what it looks like to follow Christ, but we need to actually go physically, verbally share the gospel with people so that they can be saved.
Wonderful. I love that. It's not about you.
Right.
It's not about me. It's not about Southwestern. Mm-hmm. It's about what God's doing and keeping him central focused.
Right.
And really getting out there. I love that you shared what Paul stated in Ephesians for the work of the ministry, for us to be out there sharing and really focusing on that. It's not about you or me, right? It's about us being able to be equipped to go and do that. And you're obviously being equipped to do this. And I'm grateful that you're out here. And, he and I, we've not known each other from Adam. And it's just like the last hour or so since we've introduced each other and talking to each other.
Talked about Canva.
Oh, Canva.
Talked a lot about Canva.
Lots about Canva. I mean,
also not sponsoring this video, but you could.
Canva, you can sponsor this video because our lower thirds are from Canva. Yes, so I might have Jonathan put that in there later on. But anyways, we, I feel like, man, it's when I meet people like you, it feels like you've known them your whole life. You just start building that relationship. So I love getting to know people. When you look at evangelism, so what year are you at Southwestern?
I'm in my third semester, so I've got about 3.5 years left.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you're in your third semester. By the way, he's really mature in his faith, of his walk and how he carries himself. And I'll tell you, just 3 semesters in, I think you're on track.
Thank you.
So I'll continue to pray for you in that. But looking at that, when it comes to evangelism, what do you think about when it comes to evangelism, and what are some techniques and opportunities you use when sharing the gospel?
Yeah. Well, I think whenever you look at the life of Jesus, one of the things that he does is he meets a physical need and the spiritual need.
Yeah.
A lot of times we want to meet the physical need and we don't want to meet the spiritual need.
Yeah.
I was getting gas in December in Texas, and this guy came up to me and he said that he had lost his credit card and he just needed a couple dollars of gas to get him back to his house so he could fill it up with the tank that he had. So I started filling up his tank, and while we were sitting there, I started talking to him and asked him, if he went to church or if he knew the gospel, if he was even from the area. I didn't know him from Adam either.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, what do you do? Like, why are you helping me? I don't know you. This isn't something that people do,
Right.
you know? And so I got the opportunity to share with them that I'm on staff at a church, and I help people because I love Christ and because they're made in the image of Christ, and he's called me to love others just as he has loved me.
Yeah.
I got the opportunity to walk through the gospel with him. It would have been really easy for me to fill up his tank, shake his hand, tell him to have a good night, and go home.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what a lot of people do, and I struggle with this too, of how many opportunities have I missed to share the gospel?
Oh man, when I was first saved, I think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, February 21st, 2003, I received Christ at West Liberty that evening, and as I was starting to grow and being discipled and understanding things, I started realizing I'm missing so many opportunities around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think about that today. And so that's why I try to do whatever I can to share the gospel anywhere that I can.
Right.
It's they're one of our former DOMs for the association, on his watch there was a dot at 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I can't remember the program or the thing that's from, but that was a reminder that by 2 o'clock you should have shared the gospel.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I thought, man, that's bold. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a constant reminder, because if you're wearing a watch every day, you're going to see that.
Right.
Right. And so when you share the gospel, what are some gospel evangelistic tools that you've been introduced to over time?
Mm-hmm. Well, you got the 30-second testimony.
Yeah.
That one's a really good one that I've used before. There was a time in my life when fill in the blank, but then I met Jesus, and now I am, fill in the blank.
Thank you for sharing that, because last week I was sharing that the best thing that you have is your personal testimony, and also one thing no one can refute is your personal testimony.
Right. And that's a really big thing in our culture today is, your experience determines all. And so because of our culture today, there's no way to dispute that, And while our culture is wrong, that there is objective truth,
Yep.
and experiential knowledge isn't necessarily objective knowledge.
Right.
But our testimony is true. We have received Christ. We have had this true experience with the Creator, and so we ought to share that.
Exactly.
And it creates this personal relationship, and it humanizes you.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows that you are vulnerable enough, but that you've also been changed. There's a change in your life because of Jesus.
Yes.
And I really like that one, especially if I don't have a lot of time or if I don't know someone very well. That's a great introduction.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I also like the 3 circles.
Oh, I love 3 circles. Talked about that last week.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
3 circles is a great method, especially if you've got something that you can draw on, or you can download the app.
Yeah.
From NAM.
Yep. Well, and if I think you can go to almost any app market, you can download that, and then it gives you all the steps, right?
Right.
I mean, you got the bracelet you can wear.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sharing last week that I was at a hockey game up at the Pittsburgh Penguins one evening. Actually, it was with Jonathan, and as Jonathan, our former director of missions, 2 other guys from another church, and my son. And so my oldest son, Jacob. And so there was a guy sitting beside me. We got talking. He just had a newborn, and he saw I had my boy there, and all of that. And then it just got the brokenness, right? Because I like 3 circles, because you got the brokenness. But perfect thing about 3 circles, you can start anywhere. Yeah.
It's so open-ended, and it's so you can customize it to the need of the situation. And I really like that about it. And it's also something that's really easy. It doesn't require you to memorize 12 passages of Scripture, right? The Romans Road it's a great tool, but if you don't have all of those verses memorized, it can kind of be intimidating. And so I really like the 3 circles, because you get the whole of the gospel, and you can do it in a really simple way, and you can also do it visually.
Exactly. The tagline of 3 circles is building everyday conversations into gospel conversations. Listening.
And people open the door to gospel conversations all the time. You can turn anything into a gospel conversation. It's quite impressive, if you really want to, how easily you can make something a gospel conversation.
Yeah.
You can turn sports, basketball.
Yeah.
I'm a real big basketball guy. I coached basketball for 3 years whenever I was at Texas A&M. You can turn basketball very quickly into a gospel conversation.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
No. I love NASCAR. All right?
Okay.
I'm a big racing fan. And you can turn a lot of things. Now, listen, we've had some tragedy in NASCAR. And so even that, you've got drivers who are getting in cars going 200 miles an hour who they're not guaranteed that they wreck that's going to be good.
Right.
That they're going to walk away. I mean, there's a lot of things. So, and I do a racetrack ministry with one of our ministry team leaders at a dirt track down the road from our house. And if you haven't been to a dirt track, I'll tell you what, that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. But you can use anything.
You can, and then you can bring it back to the 3 circles if that's the way that you want to use it, because it's so customizable.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that. And I like to ask people if they have anything I can pray for them for, because most people are not going to decline prayer, no matter what religion they are. They're going to be fairly open to prayer.
Yeah, I would say probably 90% of people. Every now and then you're going to get someone who's going to say, oh, no, thank you.
Right, and
but
you pray for them
rare.
right there. Right, you don't just say, oh, can I pray for you? They say something, and then you leave. You pray for them out loud right there because they see that you care. And then you say, can I share with you about the God that I just prayed to?
Yeah.
Because if you pray for them in the moment, that's great, and that can be encouraging for them. But if you don't share the gospel with them, you haven't truly evangelized.
Right.
And I think sometimes we also count prayer as evangelism, and that's not the same thing.
Inviting someone to church and just praying is not sharing the gospel.
That is correct.
Right. One of the biggest things that I sometimes get in trouble with this is it's great. I love that people invite someone to church. Listen, please,
you should.
Please do not.
It's a great thing.
Do not get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. You need to invite people to church. But if you fail to share the gospel with them, what happens if they don't make it to church?
Right.
What happens if 5 minutes down the road they get in their car, they get T-boned, and they don't survive? I hate to be morbid. I hate to be but there's a reality. Okay, where I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to make it home today.
Right.
There's no 100% guarantee. Now, based upon so many times that I've traveled up and back here to our office, there's a percent that's very favorable in my odds that I'm going to make it home.
Right. But it's not 100.
It's not 100%. You know, there's times I've broken down on the way home. I mean,
and these roads are wild. These roads are crazy. They're hilly. They're high. I like Texas because it's flat.
Yeah, this is it's a little bit different around here. You got a lot more 4-wheel drive vehicles around here probably than you do in Texas.
Whenever I'm going 90 on the interstate, I'm getting passed by cops.
That's crazy.
Because it's just straight and flat.
It's a wide open. You can't go wide open here.
No.
Now listen, we have one of the roads that I travel on used to be nicknamed the oil and gas Autobahn. All right,
Nice.
It's our anyone watching from down in my area, Route 180 from New Martinsville down to Route 18 that takes you to Middleburn. There, when we first moved down there 5 years ago, I tell you that every other day there was an accident on that road. And 9 times out of 10, the accident was caused because of an oil and gas worker passing somebody and causing an accident. And folks just always drove wide open. They've cracked down on that since then. But, I mean, yeah, you can't go wide open on our roads. Turns come, you can bite the dust quick. But you're not guaranteed. And so inviting somebody to church, it's good. I love it. Thank God for those who are inviting people to church.
Right,
because
continue
we need
to
people
do it.
Yes, please don't stop. But don't just stop there.
Right.
Share the gospel.
Well,
Share the God. Share why you go to church.
Right, and it's going back to Ephesians 4. You know, Paul has given, or God has given gifts to the church in apostles, prophets, evangelists, and pastor teachers to equip the saints
For
the work of ministry. What is the work of ministry? It's sharing the gospel. It's preaching the good news of Jesus Christ, and it's calling the lost into salvation so that they can be made new and be brought to life.
Yeah.
And I think that we have, not only have we confused prayer with evangelism, we've confused inviting church as evangelism, and it's not the same. You shouldn't stop doing it, but you shouldn't stop there.
Well, I want to thank you for being on. We're going to continue our conversation. And for this episode, I want to let you guys know that's listening, go over to our YouTube page because we're going to do an overtime.
Okay.
All right. And so we're going to move into an overtime segment. We're going to close this one out right now. But if you get a chance to go over to YouTube and finish watching us and listening, we're going to continue this conversation because I think that this is a little bit more. There's a little bit more here that we want to try to unpack. And so check that out on YouTube, and we'll see you back here next week on the regular podcast. But we're going to continue this conversation.
Sounds
God
great.
bless, and we'll see you in a few minutes. You have been listening to Serve, Supply, Strengthen, a podcast developed to help local churches reach their community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Feel free to like us, share this podcast, download it, leave a comment to let us know what you think. Serve, Supply, Strengthen is a ministry of the Upper Ohio Valley Baptist Association. You can learn more by going to uovba.org.